The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. The Musgrave Ritual. And now here we are, seated once more in Dr. Watson's study. The good doctor is wandering aimlessly about the room, tidying objects on his desk, straightening a row of books.
A place for everything and everything in it. Place, I always say. I do hate a mess. Holmes, on the contrary, was one of the untidiest men that ever drove a fellow lodger to desperation. When I find a man who keeps his cigars in the coal scuttle, his tobacco at the end of a Persian slipper, and his unanswered correspondence transfixed by a jackknife in the very center of a wooden mantelpiece, then I began to give myself virtuous airs. One winter night, as we sat together by the fire, Holmes playing casual chords on his violin, I ventured to suggest that he might spend his time more profitably by making our sitting room a little more habitable. I say, Holmes, I wish you'd stop that caterwauling. Oh, stop that racket. Why don't you do something worthwhile instead of lolling around like that?
For instance?
Well, you could straighten up this room. It looks more like a pigsty every day.
Oh, very well.
Now where are you going? Look at the place. Papers on the table, papers on the floor, papers on all the chairs. What are you doing, Holmes? Pulling that large tin box in here?
House cleaning. The key? Oh, yes.
What have you got in there?
Cases. Records of some of my earlier cases. Done, prematurely. Before I had such a competent biographer. I think if you knew what I had in this box, you'd ask me to pull some out, instead of putting others in.
It's no use, Holmes. You can't get round me like that. You might just as well begin putting your stuff away.
Here's the record of the Charlton murders. The case of Varnberry.
I'm not interested.
Well, I suppose I'd get to work. Here. Now, here really is something a little riche.
Bah, it's nothing but a wooden box with a sliding lid.
But look inside. Look inside.
A crumpled piece of paper with some doggerel written on it, an old-fashioned brass key, a bag of wood with a ball of string attached, and 3 rusty old discs of metal. Not very impressive.
Well, what do you make of it?
It's a strange collection.
And there's a stranger story connected with it.
I suspected these relics had a history.
They are history, my dear Watson. They are history.
What was it about?
These are all I have left to remind me of the Musgrave Ritual. Fascinating case, fascinating. Well, I guess I'd better be getting on with my work.
What was the Musgrave Ritual?
You want to interrupt my labors with a silly story, dear, and leave all this litter as it is reprehensible? My dear Watson, thoroughly reprehensible.
Oh, get on with the story.
Very well. It was one of my first cases, when I was making a most precarious living out of my sleuthing. It had to do with Reginald Musgrave, a scion of one of the oldest families in the kingdom. Well, I hadn't seen Reginald Musgrave for several years, until one morning I received a note from him. Here it is.
My dear Sherlock, I hear that you are turning to practical ends these powers with which you used to analyze us. Could you spare time to visit us at Hurlstone? I can promise you a problem which will tax even your nimble wits. Hopefully yours, Reggie Musgrave.
You can imagine my eagerness. In my innermost heart, I believed that I could succeed where others had failed.
Conceit.
Don't interrupt, Watson. Don't interrupt. Well, late that night, I arrived at Hurlstone to find myself enthusiastically greeted by mine host.
Well, Holmes, delighted to see you, my dear fellow. It's awfully good of you to come. You've gotten taller and thinner than ever.
You're much the same, I should say, Musgrave.
Alfred, carry Mr. Holmes' bags up to his room.
Yes, sir.
Your, butler is new at his job, isn't he?
Yes, but how did you know?
His uniform is rather a bad fit, and his legs are better suited to the stable yard than the drawing room.
Well, as a matter of fact, he's just been promoted to his post. He used to be the head coachman. It's about Brunton, our old butler, that he wanted to see you.
What about him?
He's disappeared.
Brunton's disappeared, eh? Seems to me I've heard you mention his name before.
I dare say you have. He's been in service here for nearly 20 years, although he's barely 40 now.
Rather unusual.
Yes, he was a young schoolteacher out of the place when he was first taken up by my father. He was a man of great ability, handsome, spoke in several languages, and played every musical instrument. A paragon. Brunton had only one fault.
Yes?
He was a bit of a Don Juan. A few months ago, he were in hope that he was about to settle down, for he became engaged to Rachel Howells, our second maid.
Well?
Well, he has since thrown her over and taken up with the daughter of the head gamekeeper.
And what was this girl, Rachel, like?
Rachel is a very good girl. She had a touch of brain fever subsequent to the smash-up of her romance. I'm really rather worried about the girl.
Yes, but look here, Musgrave. You haven't brought me all the way from London to discuss a servant girl's love affairs.
That was our first drama at Hurlstone, and quite a tempest in a teapot it was. You know what country houses are like, but a second one came to drive it from our minds. And it was prefaced by the disgrace and dismissal of the butler, Brunton.
Dismissal?
One night last week, Thursday to be exact, I found that I couldn't sleep. You know how it is. Well, at 2 o'clock, I rose and lit a candle, intending to get a novel I had been reading in the library. I pulled on my dressing gown and started down the stairs. Imagine my surprise when, looking down the corridor, I saw a glimmer of light coming from the library door. My first thought was of burglars. Luckily, our corridors are liberally decorated with trophies and old weapons. I seized a battle axe in either hand and tiptoed down the passage to the library door. Don't move if you value your life.
Oh, sir.
Why, God bless me. Enter Brunton. What are you doing down here in the middle of the night?
Well, you see, sir,
And my desk has been broken into, and my private papers strewn on the table. What do you mean by going through my private papers, you scoundrel, after the trust we've had in you?
Well, sir, I meant no harm.
Brunton, you will leave my service tomorrow.
Oh, no, Mr. Musgrave, sir, I can't bear the disgrace. You know I've always been proud about my station in life.
Yes, and look it has led you into.
Please, the disgrace will kill me. At least let me give you notice and leave in a month's time, as if it was of my own free will.
Very well, but a month is too long. Take yourself off in a week and give what reason you wish for going.
A week? Oh no, at least say a fortnight.
A week? And you've been let off very lately. Now put down the paper you have in your hand and get out.
And after that little set to, you were too annoyed to sleep, Musgrave?
Well, as a matter of fact, I did spend the rest of the night thinking of things, I should say to the fellow. However, by morning I had calmed down somewhat.
And Brunton?
For 2 days afterwards, Brunton was most assiduous in his attention to his duties. On the third day, he was gone.
Gone? Gone where?
That's what I would like to know. His bed had not been slept in, but all our windows and doors found locked on the inside. No one had let him out.
Did you question this girl, Rachel?
Yes, she's been very ill ever since his disappearance. Sometimes hysterical. I had to have a nurse sit up with her at night.
What was the condition of Brunton's room after the disappearance?
Very orderly as usual. His clothes, his watch, even his money were in the room. But the black suit he usually wore was missing. His slippers, too, were gone. but not his boots.
Enlightening, most enlightening. And what was the paper he had in his hand when you surprised him in the library?
It was the Musgrave Ritual.
The Musgrave Ritual? What is that?
Oh, and rather absurd business. It only has this antiquity to excuse it. It's a strange sort of catechism which each Musgrave must answer when he becomes of age.
Could I see it?
Certainly, certainly. It's in the library. Come this way.
This old hall is rather impressive with all its armor and weapons. Wait, I fancy I heard someone on the stairs. Someone on tiptoe.
I'll run up and have a look.
Be careful, my dear fellow. Be careful.
No, there's no one here.
Strange. I would have sworn I heard footsteps.
Must have been the old stairs creaking. This is the library, and this is the desk where I keep my private papers.
How private? I mean, is there anything there that would benefit anyone else?
Good heavens, no.
Nothing that might lead to blackmail?
No, sorry to disappoint you, Holmes, but I've led a very tame and uninteresting life.
I see one of the drawers was broken into. Very amateurish. I'm afraid Brunton had very little experience.
Yes. That lock is completely damaged. I've moved everything to this side of the desk. Just a minute till I find my keys. Ah, yes. And here's the Musgrave Ritual.
Curious old writing. It dates back to, Charles the First, I should say. You can tell by the spelling.
Probably Charles II. My ancestor, Ralph Musgrave, was a prominent cavalier and right-hand man in Charles' wanderings. They went in for rigmarole of this sort in those days. It's just a series of questions and answers, probably the byword of a secret society.
You know the answers by heart, I take it.
Yes, it's something every Musgrave has to learn.
Suppose I read off the questions, and you give me the answers.
Fire away. You can't trip me up there.
All right, here goes. Whose was it?
He who is gone.
Who shall have it?
He who will come.
Where was the sun?
Over the oak.
Where was the shadow?
Under the elm.
How was it stepped?
North by 10, and by 10. East by 5, and by 5. South by 2, and by 2. West by 1, and by 1. And so under.
What shall we give for it?
All that is ours.
Why should we give it?
For the sake of the trust. You can see, Holmes, the paper has no practical importance.
On the contrary, it has tremendous practical importance. Your butler seems to have been a very clever fellow. He has had more insight than 10 generations of his masters.
I say, Holmes.
The oak, I take it, is the one that stands here, to the east of the house. I noticed it as I drove up.
That's right, you can see it from this window.
Yes, quite a patriarch.
It must have been here when the ritual was drawn up.
It was there at the Norman Conquest, in all probability. Listen, there's someone in the hall outside, eavesdropping. I'm sure of it this time.
Hello, why it's Rachel, my dear girl. Whatever are you doing up and about like this? Where's your nurse?
She's sleeping. I fooled her.
You must go right back to bed.
Yes, I must go right back. He's gone.
Yes, of course.
Bronton's gone. He's gone, I say.
Yes, I know that. Now, don't worry, we'll find him for you. Just go back.
You'll never find him. Never. I know where he's gone.
Yes?
He's gone where he belongs.
Where's that?
To hell. He's gone to hell.
I say she's delirious. Help me to get her upstairs, will you? We'll have to postpone our talk, I'm afraid.
Yes. There's nothing more to do until tomorrow morning in any case.
What do you mean, tomorrow morning?
When the sun is over the oak.
That's what he said. And now he's gone. Gone.
Good morning, Holmes. I hope you haven't been too bored prowling around the grounds by yourself. Sorry to have kept you waiting for breakfast. Fact is, I'm a bit upset. There's been another disappearance. Rachel eluded her nurse again last night, and so far she hasn't been found.
So I understand. Your now butler told me. I've traced her footprints to the edge of this lake.
But the lake is over 8 feet deep at this point. Oh, the poor, demented girl!
I took the liberty of ordering the drags and grappling hooks at once.
Yes, I see the men working. Have you found?
Nothing. Exactly nothing. Hello, there seems to be some excitement now. The drags have caught on something.
We got her, sir. We've got her over this time for sure.
All hard, boys. That's right. What a frightful business. Hello, why? It's not a body.
No, it's a large canvas bag.
Here, boys. Give it to me.
Yes, sir.
What's in it?
Just a minute. Don't slosh it around so. Why, it's just a lot of discolored metal and some dull-colored pebbles of glass. Bah, throw it back in.
Stop! Better keep that stuff. Bring it along, and don't let it out of your hands. Now let's get back to the house.
Breakfast, eh?
No, breakfast will have to be postponed. The sun is now over the oak.
I say, Holmes, you're not taking that rubbish seriously.
The only thing that puzzles me is the absence of our ancient elm tree.
Sorry to disappoint you. There are plenty of elderly beeches. Won't they do?
No, I'm afraid not.
Wait a minute. There used to be an elm. Very ancient it was, too. Over there. You can see the stump. It was cut down when I was about 15.
That's better. Midway between the house and the oak. Yes, that must have been the one. I suppose it's impossible to find out how tall it was.
Not at all. It was 64 feet.
Excellent. But how in...
That tree was my tutor's favorite exercise in trigonometry.
No, then. The shadow of the oak is fairly obvious. We can see that for ourselves. But the shadow of the elm is a bit more difficult.
I say, Holmes, what are you doing with that fishing rod?
A fishing rod of 6 feet throws a shadow of, let me see, 9 feet exactly. Quite simple. Therefore, a tree of 64 feet will throw a shadow of 96 feet, and in the same direction. Where's my tape? Ah, yes, 96 feet, 96. Yes, here we are.
I must say, Holmes, that's very neat.
That's just the beginning, my dear fellow. Just the beginning. North 10 and 10, 10 steps by each foot, I think that means.
That takes you parallel to the wall of the old wing of the house.
Marked with a peg. Now, 5 to the east, yes, and 2 to the south.
I say, it takes you to that unused door.
The old unused door has been used quite recently. The surrounding ivy is all torn.
Yes, by Jove. It's even unlocked.
How long since this wing has been inhabited?
Not for several generations. It's the oldest part of the house. Built in the 16th century, I should say. It's only used nowadays to store things.
Open the door. 2 paces to the west obviously means 2 paces down this flagstone passage. Well, this must be the place indicated by the ritual.
What are you tapping the stones for?
All firmly cemented together. Not even a hollow sound.
I told you, it was all blatherdash.
Hold on. And so under. I nearly forgot that one. Is there a cellar under this place?
Yes, it's as old as the house.
Lead me to it. That's where our search ends.
Very well, but what are we searching for? Careful. Steps here. It's pretty dark. That's it. This is the cellar. We store wood down here. Sometimes, hello. All been moved to the side.
What's this? What's this?
It's Brunton, muffler. What's the villain been doing down here?
Just as I thought. Look here, this piece of wood. It's been used to prop up something heavy. See how both ends are flattened.
Look, the muffler attached to this iron ring. Set it in the flagstone.
A quite sizable flagstone, eh? He must have had someone to help him. He couldn't raise that by himself.
You mean Brunton?
Yes, he was after the buried treasure. He probably talked Rachel into assisting him. That's how she happened to be in possession of the bag she threw into the lake.
I don't understand. What are you talking about?
I can't budget. Lend a hand, will you, Musgrave?
Rightio.
Quick, prop it with that piece of wood. That's it.
By Jove, it's a small room down there, and they're on the side. What's that?
That, my dear Musgrave, is what Brunton was after. Come on, let's go down.
A brass-bound wooden box, all covered with dust and worm-eaten. The lid has been thrown back. Look here, Holmes. I thought you expected to find a considerable treasure. All this trunk contains is a few discolored discs of metal. Old coins, apparently. I say, do you think that rascal Brunton has been here and robbed me?
That was his intention, undoubtedly. But I don't think he succeeded.
Why not? The box is empty.
Because I think I see his feet sticking out from behind the box. Here, help me move the box.
It's Brunton, all right. He's dead!
Quite. Suffocated, I fancy. This cubbyhole isn't very large.
Yes, but how? How did it happen?
He was murdered on the second night, after you discovered him in the library. I can reconstruct the scene fairly easily from the data we have on hand. Rachel's condition, the bag found in the lake, the open door, the muffler, and the piece of wood used as a prop. It is the last which is particularly significant. He had talked Rachel into assisting him. Realizing that the girl was still infatuated, they waited until everyone had gone to bed, then strolled down here. It was a stormy night, I believe.
That's it. Close the door after you. Now light the lantern. That's better. For the love of heaven, don't look like that, Rachel. Nothing's gonna happen to you.
I'm afraid. Do you think we ought?
What's the matter with you? If I'd have known you had no more spunk in you than this, I'd have asked someone else. I thought you said you loved me.
I do. You know I do. I'd do anything for you.
Well then, come along. Down this stairway, easy.
But it's stealing.
Stealing? To take something a man doesn't even know he has? He'll never miss it.
But it's his, not ours.
What of it? He hasn't the sense to find it, has he? I'm the only one that has enough brains for that. Think I want to spend the rest of my life waiting on them that aren't as good as I am? We'll have money, we'll be rich. Why do you think I didn't marry you before? Because I wasn't making enough. I'm not gonna starve myself to keep a wife.
Then you'll marry me if we find it?
Here's the ring. Wait, here, I'll put my muffler through it.
But you will marry me. You must. I haven't told you before because I didn't want to worry you, but folks are beginning to suspect and I can't.
Stop your blabbing and grab this muffler. Now then, pull. Pull harder.
It's so heavy.
A lot of use you are to a man. Pull harder, I tell you. There she comes. Quick, shove that piece of wood under there.
Why, there's a trunk down there.
Of course. And I'm gonna find what's in it. Stop trembling, you fool. You're shaking the lantern.
You will marry me, won't you?
Bah, it's dusty down here. Woo. There's even a key in the lock. Up goes the lid. Well, well, well. That's something like it.
You will marry me?
Here, put the stuff in the canvas bag I brought along. Careful, you ninny. Don't drop it. Now give me a hand and help me out of here.
You haven't answered me.
Haven't answered what?
You are going to marry me, aren't you?
Marry you? Me? What kind of a fool do you think me for? Marry a girl
Don't
like
laugh.
you that lets a
Don't laugh.
How do I know I'm the only lover you've ever had? A wench like you?
I hate you. I hate you. I hate the sight of you. I don't ever want to see you again.
Here, what are you doing with that piece of wood? Look out, you fool! You'll pull it out. You're going to. Let me out! Let me out! I can't breathe.
He wouldn't marry me.
Oh, help someone!
He wouldn't marry me. He wouldn't marry me.
I say, Holmes, what a cad he must have been.
Wait.
What did Brunton find that he considered so valuable?
The contents of that bag.
What? This old rubbish? Why, the metal's almost black, and these dull-looking stones.
Try rubbing one of them. That reddish one, for instance.
Radio, I say. It develops quite a sparkle.
Quite. I imagine that stuff was left in your ancestors' possession by the royal party on the death of Charles I. I congratulate you on its discovery. It is of great intrinsic value, but of even greater importance as a historical curiosity.
Why, what is it then?
It is nothing less than the ancient crown of the kings of England.
That's an exciting discovery.
It is likely that the Musgraves who held the secret died in the interval, and by some oversight left this guide to his descendants without explaining the meaning of it.
Truly amazing.
You have been listening to a Sherlock Holmes adventure adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Musgrave Ritual. The dramatization was by Edith Meiser.